Telerik's Just Trace Performance and Memory Profiler ships as a standalone application, but most developers prefer to work with tools like Just Trace and within Visual Studio. That's an environment they're familiar with, that's an environment they're comfortable with. So Just Trace ships with the Visual Studio extension, which is installed by default when you install Just Trace. You can see here today I'm using Visual Studio. In this case I'm using Visual Studio 2013. So you can see that the extension works with the latest and greatest version of Visual Studio. The Just Trace Visual Studio extension also installs the Just Trace toolbar, as you can see here. The toolbar has buttons for Performance Profiler and Memory Profiler. If I want to do Performance Profiling from within Visual Studio, I simply click the Performance Profiler button. I can see that each one of these buttons, which corresponds to an option for the Performance Profiler, is enabled, and I can turn those options on or off as I like. If I want to do Memory Profiling, I can select the Memory Profiler button, and the options for the Memory Profiler are enabled. At this point, if I were to run my application, Just Trace would profile the memory as the application executes. If I don't want to do any profiling of my application, I simply make sure both buttons are unselected and my application will run as normal. The Just Trace Visual Studio extension will also install this Just Trace Getting Started tab. On this tab I can find links to some of the tutorial videos, as well as links to some of the most commonly used help pages in the Just Trace help file. I also have my specific version information down here for the specific instance of Just Trace I have installed. If I need to get support for Just Trace, I'll be asked for that information, and this is where I can find it. This page will open by default once the Visual Studio extension is installed. If I don't want that behavior to happen, I can uncheck this box next to Show when Visual Studio starts, and this tab will not open when Visual Studio opens. If I ever need to get back to it, I can come to the Just Trace menu, select Show Start Page, and it will reappear. If I would like it to start opening up again when Visual Studio starts, I can simply recheck this button, and the next time I start Visual Studio, this tab will open automatically. Also in the Just Trace Visual Studio tab, I have a sub-tab called Open Snapshots. This view gives me a reverse chronological view of all the tracing and profiling sessions I've run. As you can see here, I have both memory and performance profiling sessions listed here. I can sort these however I like by clicking on the column headers. And if I want to see the data from one of these snapshots, I can simply double click it or use the Open Snapshot button to see the data in that snapshot. Additionally, from here I can import snapshots. If a coworker or another member of my team has sent me a snapshot, I can view it here by importing it. I can delete a snapshot. Deleting a snapshot here permanently removes it, so be very careful. I can also look at the snapshot files in the folder that they're contained in. At this point, if I wanted to share a snapshot with a coworker, I could email it to them. I also have the ability to clear history. Now this will not delete the snapshots, it simply removes them from this list. The Send Feedback tab allows me to easily send Telerik any feedback I have about Just Trace, including reporting any issues that I might be experiencing. I simply type my general feedback information in the comment box and supply any steps to reproduce if I'm having an issue. By default, Just Trace will send a log file along with the feedback. If I want to see what's in that log file, I can click this link and view all the information that will be included. If for some reason I'm not comfortable with the information being included in the log and don't want it to be sent back, I can uncheck the Attach Log File box. From here I just hit the Send button and my feedback is sent. The Help and Support tab makes it easy to find assistance and support for Just Trace. On this tab, I have links to the Performance Profiling and the Memory Profiling video tutorials. I also have a link to the Telerik support site, as well as a link to the Telerik Just Team blog. This tab also provides me with the ability to check for updates to see if I'm using the latest version of Just Trace. I can click this button, and as you can see, I am currently using the latest version of Just Trace. If I wasn't, I would be informed that there's a new version that I could download and then install.